There's a version of rest that feels like falling. You sit down. You close the laptop. You tell yourself you've earned this. The evening off, the weekend. The holiday you booked 3 months ago and have already half cancelled in your head. And for about 4 minutes, it's fine. And then something shifts. A low hum of unease. A background sense that you're missing something, forgetting something, falling behind on something. And so you check. Just quickly. Just to make sure. And the checking becomes working. And the working becomes 2 more hours. And you look up and it's midnight and you have no idea how you got there. This is not ambition. Ambition has a direction. It moves towards something. What you're describing has no direction. It's motion for the sake of motion. It's running because stopping feels more dangerous than continuing. And here's what makes it so difficult to see clearly. Every single external signal in your life has told you this is good. You got the results. You got the promotion. You got the reputation. The machinery works. So who are you to question it? Seneca questioned it. 2,000 years ago, writing to his friend Lucilius in a series of letters that have survived every empire and dark age and printing revolution to land somehow in your hands today. Seneca looked at the most successful, most respected, most perpetually occupied people in Roman society and wrote something that should stop you cold. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a good deal of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements, if it were all well invested. But when it is wasted in heedless luxury and spent on no good activity, we are forced at last by death's final constraint to realize that it has passed away before we knew it was passing." He was not describing lazy people. He was describing busy ones. The most occupied people he knew. People who would have recognized themselves in your calendar. Today we're going to look at why successful people can't stop working. The real psychological reason, not the flattering one. And what Stoic philosophy offers as a precise, honest, and genuinely usable cure. Let's start with a definition that will probably make you uncomfortable. Workaholism is not loving your work. That's a very important distinction, and almost everyone gets it wrong, including most people who have it. Loving your work means the work itself is intrinsically rewarding. The activity fills you. You engage with it and come away satisfied, energized, more yourself. You can also stop doing it, rest, be present with other things, and return without a sense of dread or compulsion. Workaholism is the compulsive use of work to manage an internal, emotional state that has nothing to do with the work itself. The clinical definition from occupational psychology research describes workaholism as working excessively and compulsively, where the compulsion is the key word, not a preference, not a passion, a compulsion, a behavior driven not by what you want, but by what you're trying to avoid feeling if you stop. This is why the standard advice, just set boundaries, just log off at 6, just take a holiday, doesn't work. You're not dealing with a habit, you're dealing with a function. The work is doing something for you. It is regulating something. And until you understand what that something is, every boundary you set will feel arbitrary, vaguely threatening, and very difficult to keep. So what is the work actually doing? For most high achievers, work is performing at least 3 psychological functions simultaneously, and none of them have anything to do with the work itself. The first function is identity. When your sense of who you are is deeply entangled with what you produce, stopping producing feels like stopping existing. This is not a metaphor. The neuroscience of identity threat shows that challenges to core self-concept activate the same neural pathways as physical pain. When a workaholic stops working and sits with the discomfort, the blankness, the purposelessness, the vague sense of worthlessness, they are genuinely experiencing something that their nervous system registers as dangerous. The second function is control. Work is a domain where your effort has legible, measurable, relatively predictable outcomes. The rest of life, relationships, health, meaning, mortality is substantially outside your control. Work offers the feeling of agency in a world that is otherwise deeply uncertain. For highly anxious, highly conscientious people, this is enormously seductive. The third function is avoidance, and this one is the hardest to see. Work is socially sanctioned. Nobody tells you you're escaping when you're working late. Nobody holds an intervention for the person who answered emails during their child's birthday party. The avoidance is invisible to you and to everyone around you. But the thing being avoided is real. Quiet, stillness, the questions that only come up when the noise stops. Seneca saw all 3 of these. He writes in On the Shortness of Life, "Believe me, it is the sign of a great man and one who is above human error to allow no portion of his time to be skimmed off." He was not praising busyness. He was describing its opposite, a person so secure in themselves that they do not need to fill every moment to justify their existence. On the Shortness of Life is one of the most misread texts in classical philosophy. People encounter the title, assume it's about mortality, skim it for inspiring quotes, and miss the actual argument. The argument is surgical. Seneca's target is not death. His target is busyness as a form of self-deception. The way occupied people convince themselves they are living, when in fact they are postponing living indefinitely. He writes about a man named Paulinus, a high official, enormously successful by any external measure, and addresses him directly. Withdraw yourself from the crowd, from the few, yes, even from yourself. You have been kept in turmoil long enough. You belong to yourself. You belong to yourself. 4 words. Let them land. Because the workaholic's fundamental problem is not that they work too much. It is that they have gradually, and without quite noticing it, stopped belonging to themselves. They belong to the inbox, to the project, to the client, to the version of themselves that other people need them to be. The self, the actual interior person with desires and observations and a relationship to their own existence, has been quietly colonized by obligation. Seneca continues, while we are postponing, life speeds by. Nothing, Lucilius, belongs to us, only time. We were entrusted by nature with the ownership of this single thing, so fleeting and slippery that anyone who will can oust us from possession. Notice the precision of that. Not health, not relationships, not even happiness. Time, the specific, irreplaceable, non-renewable currency of a human life. And the successful workaholic is, by Seneca's analysis, poorer in this currency than almost anyone. Not because their time is short, but because so little of it is actually theirs. There's a modern counterpart to this in the research of Epictetus, who developed what he called locomotion orientation, a psychological mode in which a person is so focused on movement, on doing, on not stopping, that the question of where they're going becomes entirely secondary. Movement itself becomes the goal. Action for the sake of action. High achievers test very strongly for locomotion orientation. And here's the paradox it creates. The more capable you are of getting things done, the more you can fill every available moment with motion, and the less likely you are to ever stop and ask whether the motion is taking you anywhere you actually want to go. Seneca's phrase for this was the busy man who is always preparing to live, always one project away from the life they intend to have, always earning the rest they never take, always becoming, never being. He is describing with characteristic Roman bluntness a tragedy, not a character flaw, a tragedy. The tragedy of a capable person who has mastered everything except the art of being present in their own life. Let's go deeper into the first function we named, identity, because this is where the Stoic cure becomes most precise. Identity fusion with work happens gradually. You start a career or build a business, and you work hard because the work matters and the effort is genuine. You are recognized for what you produce. The recognition feels good, as it should, and slowly, imperceptibly, a shift occurs. Stop being a person who does good work. You become your work. The work is no longer something you do. It is something you are. And this distinction, which sounds philosophical, has very concrete psychological consequences. When you are your work, any threat to the work is a threat to you. A critical email is not feedback on a project. It is an attack on your personhood. A slow quarter is not a business problem. It is evidence of your inadequacy. A day of low productivity is not a bad day. It is proof that you are, in some fundamental sense, failing to exist correctly. And this is why you cannot stop. Because stopping the work would mean confronting the person who exists underneath it. And that person, stripped of their output, their title, their to-do list, their indispensability, feels terrifyingly undefined. Epictetus addressed this directly and with characteristic sharpness. He distinguished between what he called prohairesis, your faculty of choice, your reasoning will, the part of you that is genuinely and irrevocably yours, and everything external, your reputation, your role, your results, other people's opinions of your work. His argument was simple. You have attached your identity to something that can be taken from you. And anything that can be taken from you is not yours. And building your sense of self on something that is not yours is not ambition. It is the construction of a prison that you call a career. This is not an argument against working. Epictetus worked. Seneca worked enormously hard. Marcus Aurelius governed the known world. The Stoics were not advocates for idleness. The distinction they drew was between work as expression of your values, something you do because it reflects who you are and what you care about, and work as the foundation of your identity, something you do because without it, you don't know who you are. The first produces what modern psychology calls autonomous motivation. You work because you choose to. because it aligns with your genuine values, and you can also choose to stop because the stopping does not threaten who you are. The second produces controlled motivation. You work because some internal compulsion or external pressure demands it, and stopping triggers anxiety or guilt because you have no self-concept that exists independently of the output. The Stoic practice for this is what Marcus Aurelius called returning to the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty, the part of you that thinks, values, chooses, the part that existed before the career and will exist if the career ended, the part that, in his words, is neither slave nor master to anyone else's impulse. The daily practice is simple and deeply uncomfortable for high achievers. Sit with yourself without producing anything, not meditating with an app, not journaling for productivity, just sitting, existing, noticing who is there when the work falls away, learning to be acquainted with that person, because until you are, you will never be free from the compulsion to keep proving they exist through output. The Stoics had a concept that appears throughout Marcus Aurelius's meditations in various forms, but was crystallized by the philosopher Pierre Hadot as the inner citadel. The metaphor is a fortress. Inside the fortress, your prohairesis, your faculty of choice, your values, your rational will, everything that is genuinely yours and cannot be taken from you. Outside the fortress, everything else, reputation, outcomes, other people's behavior, market conditions, the economy, your body, whether the project succeeds, whether you are respected, whether the work lands the way you intended. The workaholic's problem in this framework is that they have left the citadel. They are living in the territory outside the walls, in outcomes, in validation, in results, and spending all their energy trying to defend a perimeter that is fundamentally indefensible. There will always be more to do. There will always be a threat. The perimeter has no end. Marcus Aurelius returns to this image constantly in the Meditations, a private journal he never intended anyone to read, which means what we're reading is not performed philosophy. It's a man actively working on himself in real time, under real pressure. He writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And in another entry, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." This second line is the one high achievers need, because there comes a point, and most workaholics have reached it without acknowledging it, where the drive to produce has caused them to break their word to themselves about what matters, about what kind of life they wanted, about who they intended to be. The inner citadel practice for the workaholic is this: a daily and deliberate reorientation to what you actually value, not what produces results, but what you would still choose if the results were removed. Marcus Aurelius did this every morning. Before the dispatches arrived, before the petitions, before the machinery of empire demanded his attention, he would write. And what he wrote was not strategy or administration. It was philosophy. It was the daily work of remembering who he was underneath the role. He writes in Book 2, "Begin the morning by saying to yourself, I shall meet with meddling, ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious, uncharitable men today. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is truly good and evil. But I, who have seen the nature of the good, that it is beautiful, and of the evil that it is ugly. I can neither be injured by any of them, nor can I be angry with my kinsman, nor hate him. What he is doing here is not naive optimism. He is not pretending the day will be easy. He is deliberately locating himself, his identity, his equilibrium, in his own values before the world has a chance to define him by its demands. For the workaholic, the equivalent practice is this. Before you open the laptop, before you check the phone, before you let the inbox set the agenda for who you are today, ask yourself what you actually value, not what needs to get done, what you value as a person, in a life. The Stoics made a distinction that is almost entirely absent from modern productivity culture. The distinction between action and virtuous action. Action is motion. It is doing things. Modern culture has almost unlimited appetite for it, and almost no framework for evaluating it. We measure output. We track hours. We celebrate hustle. We have built an entire aesthetic around the perpetually occupied person and called it ambition. Virtuous action, in the Stoic framework, is something different. It is action aligned with the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Action that you could look at, stripped of its results, and still consider good because of how it was done, because of what it expressed, because of who you were in the doing of it. The workaholic's busyness almost never survives this test, not because the work isn't real or the effort isn't genuine, but because compulsive doing is by definition not chosen, and what is not chosen cannot be virtuous. Virtue requires agency. It requires the genuine possibility of doing otherwise. Epictetus is uncompromising on this. No man is free who is not master of himself, not master of his calendar, not master of his output, master of himself. The internal sovereignty, the ability to choose from a place of clarity and values how to spend the hours of your life, is the only freedom the Stoics considered real. The person who works 16 hours a day because they genuinely, freely, clearly choose to, because it aligns with their values and they could stop without dread and they'll return without compulsion. That person is free by Stoic standards, regardless of how it looks from outside. The person who works 16 hours a day because they don't know who they are when they stop, because the quiet is unbearable, because the inbox is the only thing standing between them and a confrontation with their own life, that person is not ambitious. By Stoic standards, they are one of the least free people alive. And the tragedy is that their chains are invisible, and everyone around them calls the chains success. Seneca: most powerful is he who has himself in his own power. So how do you actually change this? Not theoretically, practically, in a life with real deadlines and real obligations and a self-concept that has been built brick by brick on output for a very long time. The Stoic answer is not abrupt. It is not quit everything and find yourself. That is the kind of dramatic gesture that feels like transformation, but is usually just displacement. Trading one avoidance strategy for another. The Stoic answer is a practice, incremental, daily, built on the same consistency that built the workaholic identity in the first place. Here is a 3-part framework drawn directly from Stoic method. The first part is the morning anchor. Before work begins, spend 5 minutes writing the answer to this question. What do I value today that has nothing to do with what I produce? Not what do I need to accomplish? What do I value as a person, in a life? Let the answer be small. Let it be the coffee, the light through that window, the conversation I want to have, the book I've been meaning to finish. The content doesn't matter. The practice of locating yourself in something other than your output before the output begins is what matters. The second part is the scheduled stop. Not a boundary you'll enforce when you feel like it. A fixed time, decided in the morning, written down. This is when I stop today. Not because the work is finished, the work is never finished, but because you have decided as an act of self-governance that your time has value beyond what it produces. Seneca, Vindica te tibi. Claim yourself for yourself. This is the instruction he gives Lucilius at the very opening of his letters. Not as a final goal after you've achieved enough. Now, today, the first available moment. The third part is the evening question. Not a productivity review, not a log of what you accomplished. One question: did I belong to myself today, even for a moment? Not the whole day. A moment. A conversation you were actually present for. A meal you tasted. A thought that had nothing to do with work. Evidence, however small, that you exist beyond your function. These three practices will not feel significant at first. They will feel almost pointless against the weight of the compulsion. That is expected. You are not trying to stop working. You are trying to build an identity that exists alongside the work, so that eventually, gradually, honestly, without performance, stopping becomes possible, because there is somewhere to stop to. Marcus Aurelius built this, entry by entry, day by day. A man governing an empire, fighting wars, watching his children die, managing every human difficulty at maximum scale, who still found time every day to return to himself, to write, to think, to exist as a person rather than a function. If he could do it, you can do it. Not because it's easy, but because the cost of not doing it, Seneca's cost, the life that passes while you are preparing to live, is the one cost that cannot be recovered. The question isn't whether you should work hard. You will. You're built for it, and there is nothing wrong with it. The question is whether the work is yours, chosen, valued, aligned, or whether you have, without quite noticing it, become the works. The Stoics were not anti-ambition. They were anti-unconsciousness, anti-drift, anti the life that passes while you are busy. They built a philosophy for exactly the kind of person you are, capable, driven, high-functioning, and at risk of arriving at the end of a very successful life and realizing with Seneca that the time was not short. It was yours, and you gave most of it away. Claim it back. Not all at once, not dramatically. One morning, one scheduled stop, one evening question at a time. If this video found you at the right moment, subscribe. Every video on this channel is built for the same person. Someone who thinks deeply, works hard, and is ready to ask whether the life they're building is actually the life they want. We'll see you in the next one.